Hi, and welcome to Tim's Old School Perspectives. Today we're going to take a look at a clip by MSNBC that proposes drone strikes as an answer to the terrorism problems that we aren't really having. Let's talk about it a little bit. So this week impeachment begins, and the Democrats are putting together a full-length Hollywood production of videotape that's going to try to tug at the heartstrings of all of those people who might vote not to indict Donald Trump. They're going to try to play on the Republicans' hearts and minds, and they're going to try to make and we've all seen videos, we've all seen movies from the left that will take a ideology, that will take a concept, and they will spin a tale around it, and they're good at it. I mean, these people are actors. You know, when you've got Hollywood on your side, you can really put together a production, and you can show it so much from one side that it almost would make a person believe it until they actually come to their senses and think about it. And that's the way it is with the left. Everything they say makes a lot of sense if you don't think about it. Now, the last year has been nothing but nonstop rioting by the left. Ever since the tragic death of George Floyd, we've had rioting, we've had burning, we've had looting, we've had murdering, and it's coming from the left, and yet the Department of Homeland Security didn't seem to be too concerned about it when it was just the left. But we had one day when we had some Republicans behave badly at the Capitol, and I'm sure there was a few. I know, believe me, there was a lot of Antifa. I read a thing today about how a couple of these guys, including that guy that looked kind of like Chewbacca, are just like Ukrainians or something like that, that are somehow tied to Burisma. And so the Biden's corruption probably comes into this whole Capitol mess too. And no doubt everybody that wants to destroy America was there on that day. So the Democrats, they love to talk about this inciting violence now, but the funny thing about it is they're so guilty themselves that it's hard to imagine how with a straight face they could possibly say anything. Schumer last year, he kind of threatened the Supreme Court over a decision that they made. Maxine Waters is very, very famous for her rant against Trump's supporters and his cabinet on how the public should form a mob and push back on them. So there's all sorts of examples out there, and the Republicans, I think, are making a little movie of their own, probably, about some of the incitement to violence of Democrats, if you even want to call it that. Political speech is just political speech. Yes, it makes people angry. When I hear people talking on the left, it kind of aggravates me. And even when I hear people talking on the right, that can anger me too. And everybody can get mad about everything. But the fact of the matter is, you are still responsible for your own personal actions, as were all of those people on Capitol Hill on January the 6th. Let's take a look at a part of this little video.
So, John Hammond, that is a bulletin released to all law enforcement earlier this week that there is, until the end of April, a persistent threat of domestic extremism, domestic terrorism carried out in the ideology and around this belief that the election was fraudulent, that the COVID restrictions are unnecessary. All of those ideologies pushed by Donald Trump. But my question...
Okay, Nicole Wallace outlines here that the DHS has indeed issued this terrorism threat. But since January the 6th, we've really not heard anything of Republicans on the streets. We haven't heard anything of any Proud Boys. We haven't heard anything of the Klan or anybody else that's supposedly going to be out there trying to take over the United States. What we have seen, we've seen a hotel taken over in Washington by Antifa. We've seen Antifa rioting and chanting that they're going to burn it down in Washington, D.C. So we've seen Antifa rioting, as they always do, but we haven't seen much from the Trump supporters. And yet, we're going to start talking about drone strikes coming in on Trump supporters. Let's take a look.
But my question for you is around incitement. We had a policy, and it was very controversial. It was carried out under the Bush years and under the Obama years, of attacking terrorism at its root, of going after and killing, and in the case of Amr al-Awlaki, an American, a Yemeni American, with a drone strike for the crime of inciting violence, inciting terrorism.
So incitement is punishable by death by drone strike, if you are inciting people on the right. Now, you incite people on the left, and then that's just a patriotic duty. That's the thing you ought to be doing. And, of course, Kamala Harris herself, along with Ayanna Pressley and some of these others, last summer said the unrest in the streets should continue. The unrest should continue. Well, if the unrest continues, the death toll will also continue, as we saw last summer. Are these people inciting people to violence? Are they murderers, terrorists? Do we need to call in a drone strike? Well, frankly, I don't really think so. I think the drone strike narrative seems to be a little bit much, and we probably need to just calm down on that one. My point is that since the time the DHS has released this memorandum or has released this terror warning, there hasn't been any terror other than by the left. And although the DHS was hoping to try to point their finger at people on the right, it just really hasn't manifested itself in that way.
How does Mitch McConnell, who understands that the way you root out terrorism is to take on, in the case of Islamic terrorism, kill those who incite it, kill those who incite it?
The way to take on terror is to kill those who incite it. Well, that's a mighty bold statement. I think the killing needs to stop. Asking for people to be killed needs to stop. The Kathy Griffin holding up severed heads of presidents or blowing up the White House, or when was the last time an actor assassinated a president, are all tropes from the left. It's all stuff that we've heard from the left, but never from the right. No one has ever threatened to kill Biden, nor should they. He isn't going to live that much longer anyway. And so I just wanted to give you a little look at MSNBC, and CNN's the same thing. Jake Tapper was on the other day, and they all do. It's 24/7. So I guess if you want to see these kind of things, you can watch the mainstream media. It's very painful to watch it, and it does induce vomiting, so I don't really recommend it. But, you know, if you just want to get really good and angry and feel like having your blood pressure rise and probably take a few years off your life, well, I think watching those channels is a great idea. So I hope you guys have a great day, and I will talk to you in a while.